Welcome to Know Your Universe, where we explain some of the things that just don't fit into an origin or a complete story. Most of this series has moved over to our CTV channel, so if you want to get more of the general knowledge of your comic books, go check out that channel. Today we're going to be prepping you for some Swamp Thing stories eventually. They're a little ways out, but in order to understand Swamp Thing, you need to understand the various elemental forces that are within the DC universe. This will help you understand Swamp Thing, Animal Man, Beast Boy, Poison Ivy, and even Aquaman, and how they're able to do, to an extent, what they do. So within the DC universe, there are the elemental kingdoms, and they are more involved than you may realize. They just aren't always mentioned. Let's go through each one and I'll explain them as a whole near the end. The most prominent is the green. This is a connection to all plant life, and I do mean all, because as one of the versions of Swamp Thing proved, this even includes plant life on other planets. This allows anyone who has a connection to the green to speak to plants, control them to an extent, and for some individuals even allow them to transfer their consciousness into other forms of plant life. This last ability is stronger in individuals such as Swamp Thing, but even some individuals with minor connections have shown to do it, such as Poison Ivy in some versions. Swamp Thing has actually recognized Poison Ivy as a being with this connection, referring to her as the May Queen in some versions. The green is watched over by the Parliament of Trees, and it is their job to select their champion each time. Notable members of the green are obviously Alec Holland and Tef Holland, his daughter from other continuities, various supporting characters of the Swamp Thing comics, and like I said earlier, Poison Ivy. Now I do want to clarify something with Poison Ivy. It all depends on her version, because there have been versions of her that are fully connected to the green, giving her practically all of Swamp Thing's powers. But there are other versions of her where she literally has no powers at all, such as the version of her that's in the Batman animated series. In the recent Earth 2 series that started in New 52, the Green's champion is actually the Green Lantern, and each of the Lantern Corps are portrayed as being connected to the elemental forces instead of being connected to the emotional spectrum. Next is the red, which is the connection to all animal life. Now, just like the green, the red has its own storylines and characters, but it's primarily explored in the Animal Man series. Members of the red have displayed various abilities on top of the ones that the green can display. They get the ability to mimic things that animals can do. So think of being able to fly like a bird, or crawl on the wall like a spider, or change the color of your skin like a chameleon. The list of things that they can do is massive, because not only can they do everything that an earth animal can do, they're also connected to all alien creatures. Some members of the red develop their powers to the point of changing into the animals themselves, but only one member has ever kept this ability long term, and you probably know him as Beast Boy. Just like the green, their group is known as the Parliament of Limbs, and it selects their personal champion to battle for them. Notable members have been Animal Man and his daughter, Beast Boy from the Teen Titans, and Vixen that you might remember from the Justice League Unlimited cartoon or the CW Seed show. There's also a new version on Earth 2 known as the Yolanda. Next up is the clear, or as it's known in Earth 2, the blue, which is a connection to all aquatic life. While we know it exists, it hasn't been explored or explained very well up to this point. The only power that we know that it grants a person is the ability to speak to all aquatic life in the universe. Outside of that, we've never seen an official avatar for it or a parliament. The only person known to tap into it is Aquaman himself, and he's never really shown any abilities that would be counted to the powers of the clear and not be counted as powers of an Atlantean. Next up, we have the gray, which is connected to all fungal life. The gray is odd because it came after the green and the red, and it actually started on a separate planet. And it wasn't until that planet was destroyed that it floated through space and it landed on the planet Earth, bringing with it its unique fungal life. The elemental Matango volunteered himself to be overtaken in order to learn more about the gray and to understand its drive to spread, consume, and break down its hosts. Now aligned with the gray, Matango's thirst for power and the gray formed a collective consciousness that would eventually battle the green and the red. But at first, they worked together within the Garden of Eden until the gray tempted man with the Tree of Knowledge. And thus their war began, which forced the Parliament of Trees to move to Brazil. This put the Grey into dormancy for a while, but once Swamp Thing fathered the human child Tef, the Grey was awoken. The Grey has no parliament and no notable members outside of Miki, which is the only known avatar for it. Lastly, we have the Rot, which is the connection to death. Anything that is decaying and rotting is associated with it, and their home base is the Bone Kingdom. This places it in complete opposition from the green and the red, and due to this, the green and the red have put aside their differences to combat the Rot. They are headed up by the Parliament of Decay, and each of its members are an avatar of death. The only known members of the Rot are the Arcane family, and each member at one point has taken the title of the Avatar of Rot. And that is what each one of the elemental forces in DC are. If you're interested in more bits of lore like this, then I highly recommend following the Animal Man and the Swamp Thing books as they further explore the concepts of the red and the green. I'm Benny for Comicstorian, and if you enjoyed this, check out our other videos on the screen right now, you just might like them.